What if the love of your life was actually the key to the biggest trauma in your past? Andre had it all: power, money, influence. But none of these achievements were able to fill the hole left by a tragedy that destroyed his family. For years, he silently harbored an anger so deep that it became part of who he was, until he met Helena. She appeared like an unexpected breeze in the midst of chaos, someone who seemed to see the man behind the armor. For the first time, Andre felt the possibility of starting over, to abandon the shadows, to just be human. But fate, implacable, had other plans. When the truth comes out, Andre discovers that Helena is the daughter of the man who ruined his life. And then love becomes poison, hope a trap, and the question that won't let him sleep: is it possible to love someone who carries the blood of your greatest enemy? Get ready to dive into a story where love and hate are confused, where every choice has a price, and where the line between redemption and destruction is too thin to see. Because not every truth sets you free. Some destroy. The city lights reflected in the glass of the penthouse like ghosts from the past that insisted on not disappearing. Andre stood there in front of the window, staring out at the world he had conquered, but which still seemed empty to him. The silence in the apartment was absolute, interrupted only by the clink of ice in his whiskey glass. That lonely sound echoed like a cruel reminder. He had everything, and nothing at the same time. With each sip, the memory came back more strongly. The meteoric rise, the empire built with blood, sweat, and costly decisions. The fortune was real, and so were the awards on the shelf. But the faces, the ones that mattered, they were all gone. His father, ruined. His mother, gone too soon. And he, survivor of a war he didn't choose, now lived surrounded by gold and iron and no real soul. They took everything away from me, and now they want me to believe in new beginnings, he muttered to himself with a bitter smile. A ring on the phone interrupted his melancholy, an invitation to a charity event that evening. He hesitated, but something inside him, perhaps loneliness, made him accept. Maybe the outside world still had something to offer, or someone. The hall was full of people who knew how to smile for convenience and applaud for interest. Andre circulated like a shadow, shaking hands, avoiding real connections, until something, or rather someone, caught her eye. She was distracted looking at a painting when he bumped into her lightly. "Sorry, I guess I was too distracted by your presence." Helena turned around with an unexpectedly sincere smile. "I hope you only tripped over the carpet, not your pride." Her laugh was light but sharp, like a melody he had forgotten existed. For a moment everything around him fell silent. It wasn't her beauty that gripped him, although that was undeniable. It was the way she looked at him, as if she saw something beyond the impeccable facade he maintained. "Andre," he said, holding out his hand. "Helena." That touch of hands lasted a second longer than necessary. And in that instant, Andre couldn't explain it, but something inside him stirred. A soft crack in the emotional armor he had been wearing for years. They walked through the gallery together, exchanging comments on art, literature, and the absurdities of the corporate world. "What about you, Andre? What do you do when you're not dominating the world?" "I try not to be dominated by its ghosts," he replied without thinking. Helena just smiled. Not with pity, but with understanding. A comfortable silence formed. He didn't know it, but that would be the first of many moments when words would become secondary between them. When she said goodbye that evening, Andre stood watching her go. For the first time in a long time, he felt something he couldn't name, perhaps hope, perhaps danger. But one thing was certain: that woman had ignited something he thought was dead. The next few days passed as if time had learned to slow down. Andre, used to living between spreadsheets, meetings, and billion-dollar decisions, now waited for Helena's messages, as if they were the only thing that really mattered. Every meeting with her was like a new chapter being written in a life that he already considered emotionally closed. That Saturday, they arranged to meet in a discreet cafe, away from the prying eyes of the elite. Helena arrived first. He found her laughing alone as she watched a child messing up her father's hair. "I like people who laugh without anyone around," he said, coming closer. "And I like people who notice these things," she replied, looking into his eyes as if studying him from the inside. They sat down. The smell of strong coffee filled the room, but it was her presence that numbed André. They talked about books, childhood, silly fears, and great frustrations. She was light, but not superficial, intelligent, but without showing off. Every word they exchanged seemed to bring them closer to something they couldn't even name. "Have you always been like this?" she asked, leaning in slightly. "Like what?" "Like you carry the whole world on your back, but pretend it's just a light backpack." André smiled, for the first time without defense. "I think I've learned to do that so I don't break. But you make it look easy to be whole." Helena lowered her gaze for a moment. "Nobody is whole, André. You just learn to put the pieces together more gracefully." The answer hit him like a mirror that refuses to lie. For the first time, he wanted to know more about her silences. It was afternoons like that that made him doubt the walls he had built over the years. But it was also these moments that made him restless, because they seemed too good to last. That evening, André took her to his apartment. She entered without hesitation, observing every detail with the eyes of someone reading a silent story. "This place, it's beautiful, but it's cold," he commented, touching a marble sculpture. "That's what you get when you live to build empires, and nobody builds a home." "I've never stopped to think about it," he confessed. They sat in front of the lit fireplace, the fire reflecting in Helena's eyes. The conversation was still fluid, but now it carried something denser. "You talk too little about yourself," he said, "and you talk too much about what you're hiding," she replied, without losing her softness. A silence followed. Then she added, "My father always said that the most dangerous people are those who hide their pain under elegance." André laughed nervously. "Your father sounds like an intelligent man. Sometimes too intelligent." There was something in that phrase, in the tone with which it was said, that caused a subtle shiver in André. But he preferred to ignore it, for the moment. They toasted with red wine, they said nothing more, but there, in that heavy silence, they both felt it. They were plunging into something profound and irreversible. The night came heavy, shrouded in thick clouds, and a wind that seemed to whisper of forgotten memories. André woke up in a cold sweat. The dream still echoed like a living nightmare. He was running through dark corridors, calling for his parents, but the only answer was the sound of doors closing one by one. He got up and walked out onto the balcony, trying to dispel the images that insisted on haunting him. He lit a cigarette, an old habit saved for nights like this. Each drag was an attempt to silence the voices of the past. The memory came clear, like a dry punch to the chest. His father on his knees, destroyed, staring at the headline that read, "The bankruptcy of the company he had built with decades of work." A name behind it all. A face. An enemy. The man who had taken more than money. He had taken his honor, his stability, his family. André never forgot that face, nor the cold smile of someone who takes advantage of the downfall of others. "He didn't just destroy my father. He destroyed hope." Over time, he learned to hide his hatred under well-cut clothes and rehearsed speeches, but it never went away. It just fell asleep. Until now. Over the last few days, something had been lingering in the back of his mind. An uncomfortable feeling, as if fate was preparing a cruel joke. He decided to look for answers. He didn't trust intuition, but this one was troubling him. That afternoon, André met Ottavio, an old childhood classmate who was now working in the financial market. Reunions were rare for André, but he felt this one was necessary. "I still can't believe you accepted my invitation," joked Ottavio, smiling. "I needed a good dose of nostalgia and information," he replied straightforwardly. They talked about investments, politics, scandals, and alliances. until Andre, in a very casual voice, burst out, "And that guy? Do you know who came back recently? The one who loved to manipulate behind the scenes?" Ottavio frowned. "Are you talking about Helena's father?" Andre froze for a moment. The phrase struck like a thunderbolt in the middle of the conversation, but he disguised it. "Helena? Yes, his daughter. She's working on a big social project now. It seems they're trying to clean up the family's image after being gone for so long." Ottavio took another sip, distracted. "You've met him, haven't you?" Andre kept his gaze on the glass. The liquid seemed to swirl slowly, as if time had slowed down just for him. The name wasn't spoken, but he knew it. He knew it was the same man. "Is she his daughter?" The pieces began to fit together cruelly. Helena's silence about her father, the evasive glances, the loose phrases, like hidden clues. "Andre?" Ottavio called out. "Yeah, I think I need to go." Something urgent came up. He left the restaurant without saying goodbye. The air was thicker, as if the world around him had changed color. Doubt was now a hurricane. What if it was all a trap? What if the love he felt for Helena was just another piece in that man's game? But one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same. The clock struck almost midnight when Andre parked in front of Helena's house. The facade was modest, welcoming, very different from the environments he usually visited. But that night, everything seemed to have a different meaning. Every detail was a possible clue, every recent memory a clue to what he hadn't wanted to see before. Helena welcomed him with a soft smile and a touch of her fingers. "You're feeling strange today. Did something happen?" "Just tired. My head is full." She nodded and led him into the living room. The lights were low, the ambient sound light, almost hypnotic. It was a place that exuded tranquility, but Andre only saw shadows. Every picture, every object was scanned by him for confirmation. "Wait here, I'll get the wine," said Helena, disappearing down the corridor. It was then that Andre saw it. On a shelf, a picture frame. He went closer. It was an old photo. In it, Helena was still a child, smiling next to a man with a firm expression and an unforgettable look. It was him. The man who destroyed everything. Her father. A dull thud filled Andre's chest. The air seemed to disappear. He felt the ground spin for an instant. There, in front of him, was the proof. The woman he had fallen in love with was the daughter of his greatest enemy. "Have you found anything interesting?" Helena asked, returning with 2 glasses. Andre quickly pulled himself together and pointed to the photo. "Your father?" "Yes, it was my world. Before everything changed." She put the glasses on the table and sat down, but Andre remained standing. "You hardly ever talk about him." "Because it hurts, because it's complicated. But, yes, he came back recently, and we've been trying to fix things." Those words were like nails being driven slowly into his conscience. Andre sat down, trying to look serene, but inside, everything was collapsing. That morning, lying next to her, Andre couldn't close his eyes. He stared at the ceiling, as if the sentence his life had just received had been written on it. He wanted to hate her. He needed to hate her, but he couldn't. There was something about Helena that broke through all his certainties, that broke through the shield he had maintained for years. How can fate be so cruel? The monster's daughter, the only woman who ever made me feel alive again. He turned to the side and watched her sleeping. So serene, so far from the war that was exploding inside him. Her eyes, which had enchanted him from day one, now carried a weight he didn't know how to deal with. He got up slowly and walked out onto the balcony. The sky was dark, heavy, like the thought that hammered at his mind. What to do with that truth? The options were clear and equally destructive. If he told the truth, he would lose Helena. If he hid it, he would live a lie. If he took revenge, he would destroy the only good thing life had given him. The silence of the night seemed to mock him. And there, with his eyes lost in the darkness, Andre felt that he had crossed a point of no return. Loving Helena wasn't just dangerous. It was a sentence. The next few days were a silent torment. Andrei tried to stick to his routine, but the newfound truth ate away at every gesture, every word he exchanged with Helena. He needed certainty. He needed confirmation that would put an end to any illusion of coincidence. He hired a private investigator, something he had done many times before for business, but never for something so intimate. When the dossier arrived, he hesitated to open it. He held the envelope in his hands for minutes, his heart pounding, as if he sensed that once opened, there would be no turning back. Finally, he broke the seal. The first few pages contained old records, photos, and transactions. But it was in the last few pages that doubt died. Helena was, without a shadow of a doubt, the daughter of the man he hated most in the world. Not only daughter, she was close, still involved in the efforts to clear the family name. She was on the side of the enemy. Andrei closed his eyes. His hands were shaking. He dropped the dossier on the table as if it were something toxic. Not only did he destroy my family, now he's given me a poisoned gift. What was that? A hoax? A well-executed trap? Or the cruelty of chance? He didn't know, but his confidence had completely collapsed. He felt deceived, exposed, emotionally vulnerable, and he couldn't forgive or accept that. That evening, Helena invited him to dinner at her house again. Andrei almost refused, but something pushed him to go. Perhaps the desire to understand, or to judge, or to destroy. He sat at the table with her, trying to disguise the internal storm. They talked trivia for a few minutes. But she noticed the distant eyes, the fake smile. "You look strange again, Andrei," she said, pouring some wine. "What's going on?" He took a deep breath. He needed to keep control. "Just tired. Busy week." Helena stared at him. "Don't lie. You're no good at that, at least not with me." Silence. He looked away, staring at the candle flame in the center of the table. He thought about speaking, throwing the truth out there like a bomb. But no, not yet. "Do you still believe that the past defines who we are?" he asked suddenly. Helena frowned, surprised by the question. "Sometimes, yes. But I also believe that we can be more than what they've done to us." Andrei smiled bitterly. "Sometimes. The past defines whether we are worthy of love." She didn't answer. She just reached across the table and took his hand. The simple gesture hurt more than he expected. It was real. He could feel it. But it was also a slow poison. He finished his dinner with false calm. As he left, he kissed Helena on the forehead, a tender, almost paternal gesture, and completely desperate. That night, Andrei didn't sleep. He sat in the dark, the dossier open in front of him, staring at the photo of Helena with her father. And the only certainty he had was that from then on, any choice would lead to pain. The hours dragged on, heavy. Andrei was in the office, but the graphs and reports seemed to be written in another language. Nothing made sense in the face of the decision he needed to make. The dossier remained in his drawer, like a gun ready to be used, and perhaps it was about to go off. He paced back and forth, thoughts buzzing in his head. The image of Helena smiling, the way she touched him, the way she said his name, and behind that the face of her father, the man who had ruined his family. Anger burned in his stomach, but it was mixed with guilt, with a love that grew even when he wanted to destroy it. "If I can't have peace, why should she?" This phrase repeated itself in his mind like a dark mantra. He started writing an email. A dossier was attached. Name of recipient press. It was all he needed to ruin that man's reputation for good. Helena would be dragged along, and with that, the story would be over. But his finger stopped before he clicked send. He took a deep breath. The anger was strong, but not enough to silence the feeling that was eating him up inside. He erased everything. He got up from his chair and faced the office mirror. "Are you going to do this? Are you going to become the same monster you swore you hated?" The question echoed, and he knew he was losing control. The next day, he went to Helena's house unannounced. She opened the door, surprised but happy. "I thought you were running away from me." "Maybe I am. Or trying to run away from myself." She smiled, but there was caution in her gaze. "Come in. Something's happening, isn't it?" They sat down on the sofa. Andre took a few seconds to speak. "You make me feel things that I thought had died." "Is that good or bad?" "It depends on what comes with it." Helena touched his hand. It was warm, firm. "I only feel safe when I'm with you. Please don't disappear." Those words tore him apart. It was everything he wanted to hear and everything he feared. How could she not know? How could that relationship be so genuine if it was born of a cursed connection? He didn't answer. He just pulled her into a long embrace, like someone clinging to a last moment of peace before the storm. Over the next few days, Andre drifted away. He ignored calls, answering messages with short sentences. Helena insisted, but he knew he needed time or courage. Finally, he understood. He couldn't run away any longer. The revenge plan had failed, not for lack of opportunity, but because he had fallen in love with the daughter of the man who had destroyed his life. And that changed everything, because loving Helena was the greatest act of war against himself. The phone rang for hours before Andre answered. It was Helena, distressed. Getting away from her was becoming as unbearable as bearing the weight of the truth. That night, he decided he couldn't put it off any longer. She deserved to know, even if the truth was the blade that would separate them forever. He arrived at her house and knocked on the door with the hesitation of someone carrying their fate on their shoulders. Helena opened it, smiling with relief. "At last, I thought you'd left me. We need to talk." Her smile disappeared as if it had been blown away by an icy wind. She made way, silently. They sat down, and for a moment the silence was almost deafening. "I don't know how to start," he said. "Then just start. Whatever it is, I can handle it." Andre lowered his head, his eyes fixed on his own hands. "When I met you, I had no idea, but then I found out who you were, and that changed everything." Helena frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Your father," he said at last. "He was responsible for the ruin of my family. He destroyed my father, our company, everything, and I approached you thinking I could get revenge. The world seemed to stop." Helena stood up slowly as if she needed air. "You approached me as part of a plan?" Andre stood up too, trying to explain himself. "At first, yes, but then everything changed. You changed everything. I tried to stop. I tried to run away, but it was too late. I'm in love with you." "That's too cruel, Andre." "I know. Did you sleep next to me knowing all this? And every night was a punishment, because every time I looked at you, I forgot who your father was. All I saw was you." Helena paced back and forth, unable to stop. "What if I hadn't found out? Would you have gone along with this lie?" "I was trying to find the courage to tell you. You deserve the truth, and that's what I'm giving you now." She stopped, staring at him with watery eyes. "You were the first person I trusted after everything. And now you've betrayed me too." It wasn't a betrayal, it was a conflict between the man who wants justice and the man who loves you more than anything. Helena picked up her bag. "I need to get out of here. I need to think." Andre tried to stop her, but she backed away. "Don't touch me now. If you really love me, give me time." The door slammed, and Andre stood there alone, feeling the echo of the truth destroy everything they had built. Loving Helena was, after all, the fairest punishment fate could give him. The days without Helena seemed like months. Andre tried to move on, but every corner of the apartment carried her presence, the scent on the pillow, the favorite cup in the kitchen, the subtle trace of someone who left taking everything with them. He didn't call. He didn't text. He knew that any attempt to contact her would be selfish. Deep down, he understood. Loving her didn't erase the past. It didn't change the fact that he came into her life with a lie, even if he lost himself in the truth of his feelings afterwards. That was the weight he carried now. the certainty that perhaps he wasn't worthy of the forgiveness he wanted. Sitting on the living room floor, among the papers from the dossier he had already torn up, André held up the only photo he had kept. It was of the two of them, laughing, with their feet in the water, on any given evening. A real, pure moment, untouched by the poison of the past. That picture was his only prayer. If she doesn't come back, I understand, but I'll never stop hoping. On the third week of no news, André went to her house. He knocked, with no expectations. No one answered. He left an envelope with a letter, nothing grandiose, just the truth, not about her father, but about him, about who he had become because of hatred, and who he had tried to be when he met her. He went home empty, but for the first time, resigned. There were no more moves. There was no control. There was only regret, and the hope that on some level it would be enough. It was on a cloudy morning that she showed up. There was a knock on the door, and when he opened it, there she was. Different, stronger perhaps, or just more determined. "May I come in?" she asked. "Always." Helena went in, looked around, as if every space still carried the shadow of what they had lived through. "I read your letter. I needed time to process everything, to understand myself." André said nothing. He just waited. "You hurt me, André, deeply. But it wasn't just the lie. It was what it represented. I was used by so many people before you, and when I thought I was finally safe—" She stopped, took a deep breath. "But at the same time, I saw you trying to change. I saw you fighting against yourself. And that's rare." He walked over to her carefully. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I was weak, cowardly. Maybe, but it was human, and as painful as it was, I still love you." The words hung in the air, light and intense. "I choose love, André, but not without scars." He nodded, his eyes watered. "So do I, and I vow every day to put back together the pieces I've broken." They hugged, not like someone who forgets, but as one who accepts. The past would not be erased. But perhaps, together, they could write a future where it wouldn't determine everything.